So what do you do to kind of keep yourself sane?
Well, recreation like this. Although I'm not sure that golf is the solution to the insane. Sometimes it feels like it is insane. There you go.
Ah, there we are.
Over the years, I've interviewed the biggest names in finance, and they've mostly been men. But things are changing. More and more, I'm meeting powerful women controlling vast amounts of capital. What did it take for these women to break through? And is Wall Street changing now that they have?
We're in Sedona. We're about to meet Anne Walsh, who is one of the most powerful women in finance. She manages hundreds of billions of dollars in her role as Chief Investment Officer of Guggenheim Partners Investment Management. I hear she's really good at golf. I'm not that good at it, but I do know how to play, and I know that it's important to play in a man's world.
Hey, Sonali.
Hello. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
So how long have you been playing golf for?
So I guess I was in my young 20s, but I would say I sort of played at golf, and then I worked for Lincoln National in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and there everybody played golf, and that's where I really learned the game and picked it up.
I actually started playing in my high school golf team.
Did you?
But I stopped my whole adult life, and I feel like I should know it now. You're kind of my start to that.
All right, well, good. Well, let me stop talking and we'll hit some balls.
Nice. I think I've known you for the better part of 10 years, and it was actually a Women in Finance event that I first met you at. I think you were managing maybe more than $200 billion at the time. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how come there are not more people like her?
Well, you know, it really is something I'm passionate about, is trying to attract women to the industry. We see movies like Wolf of Wall Street, you know, and Greed is Good, and that's just not really very attractive to women. And also young people today. They want purposeful careers. They want to know that they're making a difference. And in my view, investment management and asset management are making a difference. We're the caretakers for people's retirement money or the savings for their kids to go to college. And more women should be attracted to our industry as a result. Certainly at Guggenheim, we have 30% of our team are women, and that's sadly, well above the industry average. And I want to keep going and get that trajectory more like our population, 50-50.
So your first job investing, did you know what you were doing?
No, not even a little bit. And I was really young. I was only 19. So I graduated college at 19. And
how did you graduate so early? I had no idea the story about you.
Yeah, so because I had grown up in the Washington, D.C. area, the schools were really good. So I was able to actually test out of a whole year. And then I finished college in 2.5 years because we were on the quarter system, and I went year-round. And one of the benefits of that is that you could take as many classes as you could for a flat fee. And so Dad figured out that for a minimal amount of dollars, I could take 4 classes a quarter. So I sped through that, and then I got my MBA right after. And then after that, I moved to Miami, and I went to law school there.
I got my MBA too. It's actual education itself, right? But it's also like, well, wait a minute, if you're going up for a job, you might be one step behind just by being a woman. Mm. And so to have that extra paper to say, hey, I have my MBA too.
Yes, it really does make a big difference. And so I'm a big advocate for that.
Usually golf is a silent game, but on this one, I'm gonna make you talk to me about your entire career and the whole way you see the future playing out for women.
Yeah, there you go.
Since I first met you, there are more women around now, I feel like. Do you see it too?
I do, and I'm really happy about that. And I think it's because of women along the way who've been trailblazers and given the opportunity for women like myself. And now I get to pass it along and play it forward. And I think that's important. Women taking care of women and the next generation broadly as well.
So what's the role of men in the workplace in terms of how women are supposed to rise too?
Well, it's not an either or. It's a collaborative effort. And while we certainly want to see more women in the industry, it's not to the exclusion of getting rid of men. That's not the point. The point is that a rising tide lifts all boats.
What do you think the biggest difference is between women and men in the workplace, particularly in finance?
I think it is the way we come at issues and make decisions, because we do look at the world differently. I know that's probably not the most politically correct thing to say, but I think it's pretty obvious. I think differently than my male colleagues, and I welcome their input into the decision making.
I feel that there has been a lot of pushback from men in the workplace, some animosity created through some of the women's movements. Do you think that you've seen some of that?
I'll look back at the 80s. There was some animosity. But now, no. I don't really sense it the way it existed then. All right. So would you like to go first?
No. Not exactly where I wanted it to go. Now we're playing.
Yep. Now we're playing.
Around the world, women are commanding more and more wealth.
Women control approximately 80% of global discretionary spending.
At long last, women are starting to make waves in the hedge fund world.
Today, they control a third of global wealth, but in the next 5 years, women, they're going to control over 50% of the global wealth market out there today.
We're at the Downtown Association in the heart of the financial district at what used to be a men's-only club since the 1800s. When I was starting in journalism, I would have to meet sources at like cigar bars.
People are still in cigar bars.
As of 2021, women-owned firms controlled just 0.7% of assets in alternative investments. And as of 2022, just 15% of those ranked managing director for investing roles in private equity and alternatives were women. These women have built their careers in alternative assets, including private capital and venture investing. Charisse Clark's firm is known for acquiring music rights of famous artists. Anu Dugal steers seed funding to women-led startups. And Olivia Wassenaar leads an energy and climate business at investment giant Apollo. The reason I wanted to talk to the three of you in particular is because all three of you have broken through so many closed doors. When you think about founding your own firm, do you think it could have happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago?
It's hard to go back in time and rewrite history. There's obviously firms that have been started by women, but there are very few, right? And so I think today's environment is one where there's a lot of women who have put in the time and effort. Like, I'm a 25-year, it looks good. I try to keep it looking fresh. But at the end of the day, I've got 25 years on the street, and 45 short years ago, there probably weren't that many women who could sit and say in this room that they've had 25 years of experience in the financial markets, investing, managing billions of dollars of capital to be in a position to do that.
I felt like early in my career, there was a little bit of this concept of like the token woman. Someone had read a Harvard Business Review case study that said, decision-making is better if you have a woman involved. And so they're like, okay. But it wasn't lots of women. It wasn't a room full of women. It was that woman. And one of the things that just always surprised me was that it's not just one seat at the table. Like, why are we fighting for that one seat?
From a historic perspective, I've raised money for a number of different kind of entrepreneurial ventures. And I would say this Female Founders Fund specifically has definitely been the hardest. Our first fund was very small, 5.85 million, but 700 plus meetings. And so it's challenging to raise institutional capital for something that is out of the box, and it still continues to be.
You know, it's interesting because I remember very distinctly, I had just started on the job. I had gotten the job of covering all the investment banks. And I went to go visit a president of an investment bank, and the quote I will never forget, I always said I would make it the cover of my book, and it was, "There's no place for women here." So I was a little shocked to hear it, but then I just took a breath and I asked why. And he said, there's no place for women because the minute they get to their 30s, then they're trying to have a family, and then the workload is too much, and it just felt like a lot of excuses.
I think one of the biggest things that creates the nature for that comment is that actually it's less about the leave that the women take, it's about the fact that men have children and don't take leave. And so the women are seen as less committed to the role because their male counterparts never have to leave the workforce for any period of time when they are beginning a new family. And that's not good for actually them or their children. And then candidly, it's also not good for the dynamic for the women that are behind, whether they're your spouse or not, in the workplace.
What do you guys make of this backlash? Like the DEI pushback there has been. What does that look like from where you sit?
I think there's this sort of lack of desire to have, formulas and regulations around some of this. But if you talk to most CEOs and boards, they're doing things because it's the right thing to do. So I think it's still really happening in the background. It's just probably lost a little bit of sort of like the steam and sort of the outward push that folks are being forced to do it.
There was a lot of momentum in the last 4 or 5 years around seeing more diversity in fund managers and founders. And I think that, in the next 4 years, we're going to see that come down significantly. And I think that's unfortunate because a lot of these managers and these founders were just getting started. But we're starting to see different role models of success. And, I think it's very different when you have a woman who, has sold a $400 or $500 million company. What is she choosing to do with that money? Are they buying the boats? Like, probably not.
Speaking of being a woman and leading as a woman, are there things that you were able to catch in terms of great investments that maybe other people have passed up on?
I think some of our best deals, some of our largest exits have been founders where, pre-launch, everyone passed. It could have been women's health. It could be, we've invested in the largest astrology app. At the seed stage, you're betting on a person and you're betting on a theme. And that may not be obvious, but over time, when you have numbers and you have metrics, then you can't argue, right?
I would just add on that last point, too. I've got a couple funds that invest in environmentally friendly companies, right? We're doing so because we make money doing them. Our returns in those companies in that asset class are good returns. In fact, they're some of our, our best credit and best private equity vehicles at Apollo. These are the types of things that I think just continue to reinforce the message that we're just doing these things because they make good business sense, not because there's a strong social agenda behind them or otherwise.
Look, I'm here to make money for my investors and for my team. I want to make a lot of money. I want to deliver an excellent and exorbitant return. I invest in an industrial complex that everybody engages in every single day, which is music, media, and entertainment. We all consume it, and it's less institutionalized than all the things that everybody else is chasing. And so as a consequence, I've decided to build a business in a place that's less traffic.
It's funny, I feel like a lot has changed, but there's kind of hints of some of the old behavior under the surface. This one's kind of recent for me. I had finished grad school, and I remember being in a class. I got my degree in quant finance, and it was all guys. There's one other woman besides me. And the guys didn't want to work with us because they said chicks can't do math. That was only a couple years ago, really. Is that still around?
You have to remember that these young men are products of their broader environment where they're hearing things like that. And some people do believe that I don't know how to do math. I know how to do a lot of math. I got an A in derivatives. And so it's helpful when they think that they don't think I know how to do math when I'm negotiating with them because
Wait, I'm trying to learn the power of being underestimated.
Of being underestimated.
It's an advantage.
It's a massive advantage.
Couldn't agree more.
It's a massive advantage. It's great. It's like, oh, you think I don't know? Okay, this is gonna be fun.
In some ways, I was really excited about this conversation because women are rising. In another sense, I was like, why is that a conversation we're having? Are we sick of talking about it?
What are we supposed to do? Like these are literally the molecular cells that I was born in. How do I?
And these are the statistics.
These are the statistics. You know, women couldn't even have their own credit cards and bank accounts in the 70s. So it's really not that long ago. So we sit here and we get to live these fortunate lives and do these amazing careers and invest in really fun things on the back of, you know, people who had to figure out how to make that change for us. I think as exhausted as I am about it, and I'm over talking about it, I feel a responsibility to talk about it because the work's not done yet. And we got to do it for the next generation. And candidly, we didn't have to struggle through, can I have my own checking account?
One thing that I was told, and this is by somebody who I very much trusted, it is still hard to ask women in the industry about what it's like to be a woman because that's not their primary job. Their primary job is to manage billions of dollars. There's still a burden to being one of few women in the room. That burden is often making sure other women are rising, for explaining a lot of experiences as though they speak for all women. But all of them, notice that they're also optimistic, and it's because things have gotten better. And they've gotten better in a short amount of time. More women are rising into positions of wealth. More women are managing money. More women are leading investment banks. More women are in private equity firms at the highest levels of them. And they're delivering real returns. And most of these firms, the greatest ones, are looking to have diverse perspectives in a room because they know that's what's going to get them into the best areas for investing. Today we're going to go interview Jane Fraser. She's the CEO of Citigroup. We're doing a live television interview with her. And after that, I'm going to pull her aside and ask her something I hadn't been able to talk to her about much since she took over. And that is what it's like to be the only woman to lead a major U.S. bank. Because to this day, she's the only woman to do so.
Where's the car?
So, Jane Fraser, how does she think about diversity more largely?
Yeah.
I think that's an important question when we're talking about women and money. Jen's texting me. This is gonna be a really, really, really intense hour and a half.
Rolling sound, quiet.
Get out, Chris, get out.
Thank you so much, Tim. Yes, I'm standing by now with CEO of Citigroup, Jane Fraser. So, we're about a year since you announced a very massive reorganization. Do you feel like you're almost done? Jane Fraser started her career at Goldman Sachs and McKinsey before joining Citi, one of the biggest banks in the world. We're good on that part of the taping, and then we're gonna do the fun part. At Citigroup, she led multiple divisions, including Latin American operations and consumer banking. I also don't know why we're still talking about it.
Yeah, and not getting more done.
In February 2021, Fraser became the CEO of Citigroup, tasked with turning around the bank's struggling stock price and lagging profitability in the middle of a pandemic.
Our head of the Middle East is a woman, our head of Saudi is a woman, our head of UAE is a woman.
Please,
Yes.
please join me. Citigroup, at this juncture, moves $4 trillion a day.
5.
$5 trillion. That's larger
We're
than...
growing.
It's larger than the GDP of France.
Yes.
That you move daily. What kind of weight do you feel on your shoulders in the morning?
I think the same as any CEO. You have to wake up every morning somewhat paranoid, feeling that urgency, a bit of excitement about what you need to do, but I think a healthy amount of pressure.
I feel like I've really tried, in as long as I've known you, to not ask you about what it's like to be a woman. I've very intentionally tried to not make that a part of the conversation, but I feel like it's now come the time to ask. Why is this something that is not addressed more loudly in this industry, that there's only one woman to lead a major U.S. bank?
It is a little surprising. I think there is a good generation coming through of really super talented women. But we've also got to recognize that there are some biases in the system, unconscious or conscious, and it's important that there's more of us that are breaking through and getting this into being business as usual rather than business unusual.
Does it ever feel frustrating to you to have to be vocal about the issue or to be the face of the issue? No one ever asked David Solomon about what it's like to be a man.
It gets frustrating when someone asks you about certain questions they wouldn't ask a guy. But for us, it's about how do we try and provide opportunities for everybody along the way, make it a win-win. Because I think we're dead in the water if it's a zero-sum game. If we weren't competing for the best female talent, I would be cutting the bank off from 50% of the workforce and really putting us at a competitive disadvantage. Diversity is harder work, but it more than pays for itself. My frustration is when people don't believe in the business case because it's so blindingly obvious to me.
Studies show that the business case for inclusion and diversity is stronger than ever. Companies with more gender diversity on executive teams were 25% more likely to achieve above-average profitability.
I walk along the trading floor and it is joyfully unrecognizable from even 10 years ago. It's full of talented men and women. It's a much more positive culture than it used to be. This is no longer the 80s, thank God. And so these are the types of transformations that, when left to themselves with the right support around it, they just happen and they change the culture of the place.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we'll see you guys. It's hard to ask a CEO with that much on their plate about social issues. Neither of us want to talk about being women in finance because if you're her, you want to think about delivering returns for shareholders and what your employees are doing. And I think it's that idea that just because there are not women there at the beginning doesn't mean there are not a lot of women there at the end. And that progress is definitely not linear. After I interviewed Fraser, news broke that major companies, including many on Wall Street, were scaling back diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives due to pressure from the Trump administration. But at some companies, the efforts continue by a different name. And though we're still far from parity, the numbers show a steady increase in women's wealth and their representation in the finance industry. In April 2025, Gunjan Kedia became the second woman to be named CEO of a major U.S. bank.
My mom's 86, and she's an attorney. So I think of my mother's generation as being real trailblazers.
Did she ever think that you were going to run hundreds of billions of dollars one day?
Oh, she's very proud. Yeah.
Do you have a tea that I could steal? Thank you.
Absolutely,
Appreciate that.
not at all.
Women helping women, Anne.
Exactly, exactly. There you go. Nice shot.